Wyrd Realities explores the paranormal, preternatural, and supernatural worlds that surround us. Here we delve into those topics that challenge us to think outside the limitations of realism, where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our Wyrd Realities.
Have you ever been alone and had the unshaking feeling someone is watching you? The family we're talking about tonight did. I'm your host, Hadley Thorne, and our conversation tonight is going to be about who really killed the Grubers, the Hinterkaifeck murders. Jenn Salmons and I are going to be having a great conversation with Wyrd Inc.'s Morgana Calder and Scott Baker from Watching Wyrd. So welcome, everybody. I am super eager to talk with you about tonight's mysterious murders.
Hey,
how are y'all doing?
Doing good. Good to be here.
Doing good.
Great. Scott?
It's great to be here. Thank you. I'm cutting out again.
Okay.
It's all the alien technology in my basement. It's screwing up the
all those
broadcast.
gremlins you have running around there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm going to unpack a couple of the facts in the story, and then we can start picking it apart. So, it was April of 1922 when 5 members of the Gruber family and their new maid were brutally massacred on their property. In the following hours after the murder, the murderer remained in the house, even going as far as to feed and milk the livestock, let out the family dog, and to make themselves a sandwich. So I found out that the Grubers were, Andreas Gruber was not the most well-liked person in the area. He had a bit of a temper and was known to beat his wife. Anyway, so they had been there for a while. About 6 months prior to this event, their maid that they had had forever started complaining about hearing voices, disembodied voices, about feeling like she was being watched, about hearing footsteps in the attic above her. And she just finally quit. And she said that, the reason why was she just could not shake the feeling she was being watched. She felt like the house was haunted. Mr. Gruber had actually gone and looked a couple of times and never found anything in the attic, never found anything at all. And so they just thought she was superstitious. Well, lo and behold, as during the next 6 months, the family would start to have their own personal encounters. They were hearing the disembodied voices. They would hear a man talk. They would hear tapping in the walls. They would hear the walking above them on the attic floor. They found things in the house had been misplaced, or like a set of keys went missing, like to the house. Then they found this newspaper in the house that was from Munich that no one in the entire town was subscribed to. No one knew where it came from. And then one morning it had snowed. There was snow everywhere, and there were some footprints leading in the perfect snow, leading from the woods to the house, to the front door. They came in and they never left. So that was kind of creepy. Mr. Gruber got very nervous at that point. He went and talked to the neighbor. They searched the premises. They searched the property. No one found anything. They did see where someone had tried to break into the tool shed. It was just kind of hacked at. So just crazy stuff. And then on the morning of, I guess it was the evening of March 31st, is that when the murders actually happened. Between 5 and 7:30 p.m. is when the best they could figure out. And someone or something called the Grubers one by one into the barn and murdered them violently with a pickaxe. So that was bad enough, but then they left the barn, went into the house, killed the new maid, that was her first day to start work, and the baby, again with a pickaxe. So it's pretty brutal murders. They, I think, interviewed over 100 suspects, and to this day it's still unsolved. So, who wants to start off? What do y'all think happened here?
How old was the baby?
2.
2. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he was 2.
And the baby was slapped so hard on, I think, the right side of its head that it caved its head in and killed it.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. And there was some question as to who the father of the baby was. And it was found out, and this was before the murders, the father and his daughter were both charged with incest. And she was pregnant when they got caught at that.
Well, and they both went to jail, I guess. Yeah. He was in there for a year, and I heard some conflicting stories. One of them said that she was in jail for a month, and the other said for a year.
Yeah. Well, they said that, and I read that too, but then I read another one that said that she went in, but when they found out that she was pregnant, they let her out so that she didn't end up having to stay as long. And it was pretty much because of the baby.
Well, keep in mind that the daughter at this time, she's like 35. Mm-hmm. She wasn't a young woman. She was 35. She had been married. Her first husband was supposedly killed in World War I. He never came home. A body was never found. He was kind of considered a suspect, but there were, again, conflicting stories. People in his unit said, "Oh no, he died. I was beside him," and then others were saying that he assumed the identity of a soldier in his unit and just kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
but yeah, so
yeah, and he was planning on divorcing her. After they'd gotten married, things didn't work out, and he was being shipped off and was planning on divorcing her. And there were rumors that Victoria was with her father, Andreas. And 9 months after he left, a baby was born. So there's still the controversy whether the baby was Carl Gabriel's or was Andreas's.
And there was also some speculation about the neighbor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
He was possibly the father.
That was who they were looking for child support from.
Yes.
Yeah, Lawrence. Oh, God. I don't want to screw this name up, otherwise it's going to sound weird. Schlittenbauer.
And I don't know if y'all caught this, but he had 3 other wives, a bunch of kids, and it was just kind of a womanizer. But her father would not let her marry him.
Yep.
So it's really weird when you start getting into the incest stuff with it. There's not a lot of information, but there's enough to convict them. So I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, very strange.
Well, Schlittenbauer, Lawrence was the prime suspect. There's another suspect that I'm going to talk about. Somebody else that one of the shows I watched thinks it might be. But he was the prime suspect because he was paying the alimony, even though it was fairly well known that she gave him the money for the alimony. Because there was the big fight about it wasn't my baby. Lawrence was claiming it's your father's, and they didn't want to have the whole controversy of incest coming up. So it was agreed that she snuck him the money. He paid her the alimony and wiped his hands of child support. And Andreas took over the child support for the baby.
And wasn't it speculated that oh shoot. Okay, I'll come back to that thought because I know it'll come back to me.
Okay. And one of the reasons they went after Lawrence as the primary suspect Because of this hyperinflation going on in Germany at the time, the courts were thinking of linking hyperinflation to alimony payments, which meant that he would have to pay an increasing amount of alimony based on the rate of the inflation. He was also one of the first to show up at the house with the rest of the search party, and he knew exactly where to look. When he found the first 4 bodies in the shed covered with hay, he immediately began moving the bodies.
Yeah, and they said that he wasn't turned off from handling them.
No,
it surprised him, and he said he was looking for the baby.
Right,
I think that's what he said.
And he found the missing key. He went into the house and opened the front door from the inside to let the others in, and the key was in the front door.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I did hear about the dog. Did y'all hear about the dog?
The dog was taken care of, wasn't he?
Well, that's another conflict. There was one story that said that when they arrived, when the search party arrived at the farm, that the dog went crazy when it saw him. Mm-hmm. And it was viciously trying to get at him. And then there's another story that said that the dog had been bludgeoned in the head, that he recovered from it, but that he had been hit with something. So, and then you have the stories about, well, the dog was in the house when the workmen came by that fixed the feed thing in the barn. And then you have the fact that it was tied up outside afterwards. So the dog thing is really weird to me, because again, it wasn't something I found in everything. But the girl that I did find it from was in Europe, and she had a photo of the dog, which was like a German Spitz.
And they were a fairly well-to-do family from what I could ascertain from the time being what it was. And they actually at first thought maybe it was robbers, but they found a significant amount of money in the house.
And jewels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you know what they didn't find? Dum, dum, dum. What they didn't find was that Victoria had some money of her own. And about 6 weeks prior to this, she had gone and emptied out all of her money out of the bank.
And, there was also, that's what I was thinking about earlier, the speculation that she had left a pretty big donation at the church, the local church in the confessional.
Yes.
And said that the priest actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, asked her about it. And she finally ended up admitting that she had done it. And they couldn't decide whether it was because she was trying to buy her forgiveness or if there was some other reason that she left it there.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that a lot of the town folks said she didn't give the money in the donation box. She left the money in the confessional. And there was, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a Catholic term for like paying off your sins, trying to bribe God.
Is it a tithe?
And that's what,
like
not tithe, it was something else. And that's what she was trying to do. Her.
Oh, it's frozen.
Uh-oh, froze on us.
He'll come back.
Relationship and skill weapons. Yep, I'm back.
Okay.
I know it's the alien technology, but there was a speculation that her and Lawrence were having an on and off affair, even though he was not the father of any of her children. And plus, the found guilty of being incest, especially in that town, which was a heavily Roman Catholic town. Most of Bavaria was at that time.
Yep.
See, my original thought when I was listening to this was, I'm an expert. Well, I like to think of myself as an expert on World War II history. I studied that. That's what I got my master's in. And the inflation was so bad that the money, if you took the money out of the bank in the morning, it lost half its value by the afternoon. And my thought was, well, here they are, a family with a lot of money. Nobody likes them. They're mean. That maybe somebody from Unic or some local area came in to steal the food, to steal the money. But none of the money was stolen. Nobody ever said whether any of the food was still left there. And somebody stayed at that place for several days, feeding the cattle, running the fireplace, but they never figured out who.
Well, one of the instances that I found was talking about how they found in the barn, up in the hayloft, they found where someone had been sleeping. They found human feces. They found where, someone had put like carpet rugs down up there so no one would hear them walking around. So, I mean, the plot thickens. I personally think that she was having an affair and had someone in the house. And
somebody besides Andreas.
Yeah.
Or Lawrence.
Well, one of the things that the tapping in the walls, that I've heard of people getting in houses and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But the noises they were hearing, they were saying it was male voice, like a male voice. But so I'm thinking she was probably sneaking up there and doing whatever with whoever, and with a plan to get the money and to run away because her father wasn't going to let her be with somebody, At least that's what I'm thinking. But another weird thing that we haven't mentioned yet is the daughter. I can't think of her name.
Cecilia or something like that.
It starts with a C. But she had run out in the middle of the night like once or twice, and they would find her in the woods, and she would have no idea how she got there.
That she was the day before she didn't come to school. They actually said that she fell asleep in class, and her teacher, got onto her and asked, why are you so tired? And the story that she told was that her grandmother had gone missing and that they found her in the woods. But it was later discovered that they had found the little girl in the woods multiple times, like you were saying, with no memory of having walked out there.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a really weird story. And there was I'm so sorry about the barking.
No, there's a dog in the story, so it's background ambiance.
Right. There you go. Well, I
Maybe
remember the little girl with the C name, Cecilia, whatever it is.
Cecilia.
She had grabbed her hair. They said it was likely in shock, and there was clumps of her own hair in her hand, and she was kept alive the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they think that I don't know that I mentioned this, but the whole family were in their bedclothes, except for the new maid who was still in her traveling clothes. So that's how they established like a timeline for what time it probably happened. But
see, I had read that Victoria was in her normal clothes.
Oh.
And that one of the theories is it was Victoria that went out because there was a cow reported missing, as had been the day before the murder. So Victoria was clothed. She went out, brought the cow back to the barn. And then the theory is the murderer was waiting there. The murderer had let the cow go. And the idea was to let the cow go when somebody brought it back, kill them. Let the cow go when somebody brought it back, kill them.
Well, didn't she also have strangulation marks around her neck?
Yes.
See, that's why I tend to think that it was someone she was involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Because her death seemed more personal.
Right.
Is it possible that her and a guy, whoever that paramour may be, were planning this? That might be why she gave the donation, and then he changed his mind, whoever that person might have been, and decided to kill her too.
It's possible.
Not likely? Or
I don't know, because a lot of the evidence goes towards Lawrence, the guy that was her husband with the alimony. because they found the murder weapon in the house and it belonged to him a year later. And he admitted it, which is kind of contradictory. Why would you leave the murder weapon and then claim, oh, yeah, that's mine?
Right. And why did it take them a year to find it?
They were tearing the house down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was in a hidden place, wasn't it?
Okay. All right. I knew they had torn the house down.
But I thought that was something Andreas had made. Like it was a weapon, or no, it was like a tool that he had made.
No, this particular one, when they were tearing the house down, Lawrence came over and said, oh, I'm looking for my mattock. And he said, that's mine. And it was the one that was supposedly used to kill them. But Andreas, I guess somebody said, no, that's not yours. Somebody who worked with them that said, oh, that's Andreas's. I've seen him use that before. Plus, they also said they think it was somebody who knew the family and had an emotional attachment because they covered the body. They arranged them and covered them with hay.
Right. That
if it was just a random murder, why would they do that? They didn't do that with the maid. They left the maid laying there on the floor.
I thought the bed was over her. They found her under the bed.
A photo I saw, which, back then there was no crime scene forensics like today, showed her laying beside the bed. Okay. Now, they could have pulled her out from under the bed. But nobody bothered covering her with a blanket or a pillow or anything.
Mm-hmm. And that's usually when it's somebody that when the guilty party has a close attachment, they feel remorse, and that's why they cover them as a sign of respect.
And the fact that Lawrence went back to the scene of the crime in the most plausible way. Gee, I know these people. I haven't seen them for 3 or 4 days. What a perfect way to revisit the scene of the crime and push suspicion away from you.
Right, because he's a neighbor, Of course he's concerned for his neighbors. The little girl didn't go to school. They weren't in church on Sunday. So let's go check on them and see how everybody's doing.
Well, and serial killers will do that. So I'm not surprised that maybe it's just a murderer thing that they want to go. A lot of times they're the ones who'll actually find the body, or they're part of the search party and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very creepy.
They will involve themselves, but most often they won't be the ones to actually find. Like John Douglas talked about this, and I'm specifically thinking of that little girl that was murdered on Christmas Eve or Christmas. John
Benet.
Yes. When Dad found the body, he said that's one of the things that led me against thinking it was them, is because Dad appeared to stumble upon it, and he goes, most of the time they'll direct other people to go find that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I found an interesting thing about that Carl Gabriel, the husband, that at the end of World War II, prisoners of war from Schrobenhausen region who were released prematurely from Soviet captivity claimed that there was a man who'd sent them home, had been a Bavarian-speaking Soviet officer who claimed to be behind the murders at Hinterkaifeck. I can't say that. I'm sorry. I'm not good at German.
Hinterkaifeck is how I heard it, but
Hinterkaifeck.
Yeah. Now I don't know if that person had it right, but
it's such a lovely sounding name. Where do you live? Yes. I live in Hinterkaifeck.
Germans sound like such angry people.
Yes, they do.
It said these statements were later revised by some of the men, diminishing their credibility, but many who subscribed to the theory believe that this officer was in fact Carl Gabriel. Those who claimed to have spoken with the man after his death said that he wanted to go to Russia. So that's weird.
Awesome. My wife and I were talking about this, and like she was saying, if she was divorcing me and was killed during the war, grab somebody else's ID and run. You're out of it. You don't have to pay the alimony. You don't have to, pay the court costs. But this I read one of the YouTube I watched, this was a bizarre twist, apparently. The police had no clue who it was. There were reasons why they didn't really want to put it on Lorenz. So and I've not been able to confirm or deny that. I don't think the dog agrees with me.
Scott.
But the police severed the heads of the victims and took them to a medium and asked the medium, "Can you get?" This was in one of the two documentaries I watched on it. Like I said, I have
crazy. Okay, go ahead. I'm fascinated. Go ahead.
It sounds insane to me, but it's 1922 Germany, so
right.
And the medium contacted the heads, and she said that the murderer was Carl Gabriel, the husband.
Dum, dum, dum.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I watched a documentary on this last night, in which it was by, I don't know the name of the actual person. It was by Rotten Raven Studios. I'm going to put a link on my Facebook page to this. This person went into an in-depth discussion of the murder.
Why am I not able to hear you?
Am I lost again?
I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, Jennifer just lost. I'll give her a minute to come back so she can hear this. But the documentary that I looked at had all the information that the first documentary had. They followed the facts. They talked about the possible incest. They talked about the crime scene. The first maid claiming the house was haunted because she heard voices upstairs and she heard walking.
My apologies, I'm back.
That's okay. This person makes the claim, and I don't know if I buy it, but it is interesting that the murderer wasn't Lorenz Schlittenbauer, but the murderer was his wife. And,
I wondered about that.
And she points out that the wife's name was Anna Schlittenbauer. She was not a popular woman. She was his second wife, Lawrence's second wife. She had 4 kids out of wedlock prior to marrying Lawrence, 3 of whom died. She knew that there was probably something going on between Lawrence and Victoria. Nobody other than the family itself. Nobody in the town had any money. So here comes the court order saying, oh, you're going to have to adjust your alimony to inflation, which means more money that the family couldn't afford. And let's see. What was another one? And all of the murders, all the murdered victims looked like they were done by somebody who was left-handed, who took the mattock like a baseball bat and hit them on the right side of the head, rather than somebody who was right-handed using it to hit them on the left side of the head. She was left-handed, apparently. And they say that what had happened was, because Lawrence couldn't have stayed there for 4 days. He would have gone missing in the community. Mm-hmm. So what she did was Anna got her brother, Johann Dick, don't laugh, and
Johann what?
Dick. Well, probably as you'd say in Bavaria, Dish. And that now this was a woman who had a bad reputation, and she didn't, she had no reason to like Victoria, So she asked her brother to help. One other thing about Lorenz, he was older and asthmatic. That's one of the reasons why the police never fully suspected him. They didn't think somebody in that condition could actually pull off a quintuple homicide. So the theory goes, they went over one night, that her brother Johann went over, checked out the house, stole the key, because remember the footprints going from the forest to the house, and that they came back that night. Lawrence was home. She had claimed that she was going out. Anna claimed she was going to go out and prepare the cattle for the night. She had already done that. That explains her being in her clothes and leaving for a while. Her and Johann went to the house, released one of the family's cattle, and Victoria happened to be the one who was dressed who brought it in. When Victoria brought it in, she killed her. The speculation is that was the most mangled body of them all. She was strangled. She was severely beaten. That might have been Anna venting her frustration on her husband's mistress. Then the other bodies came in. The other people came in. They were murdered. The maid had to be disposed of. And the child, which was purportedly the love child, little Joseph, of Lorenz and Victoria, she slapped hard enough to kill. Then she went home, and Johann stayed at the house for a little while. He's the one that fed the cattle for a couple of days. Nobody knew expected. He wasn't even lived in the neighborhood. He came to do this for her and give everyone an alibi. The other part of that theory that does tend to make sense is if she used her husband's mattock, okay, if she left the key in the door, all the clues would point not to her, but to her husband.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I guess there was no love lost between them because he was having an affair with Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'd wondered about that. And you know, another thing too, the fact that with her being female, if she lured each one of them out one at a time, it would have been easy, you know, to kill them and everything. So that does make sense.
Yeah. And some people have speculated that, oh, well, a woman couldn't do that. How could a woman take a mattock and beat people? This was 1922 Bavaria in a small farming village.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and, you know, most of the women involved in this scenario had older husbands who couldn't do the work. Mm-hmm. They were more than physically capable of doing this.
Right. Right. And emotionally, you know, Hadley and I were talking on a show one night with someone, and his feeling was, you know, that men do these things. And they're like, no, women can be just as heartless and low down as any man. You know, it's the motivation is usually different, but that women are just as capable of men as of doing horrendous acts.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, without a question.
Lorena Bobbitt.
Yeah.
And I don't remember her name, but I admire this woman so much. The one that caught her husband cheating, and she did donuts on him in the parking lot of the hotel.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the cases we were talking about covering, Heather. Remember I sent you that video?
You did.
Yeah, she claims she accidentally ran over him, but the video camera from the hotel literally shows him doing donuts in the body for like 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And repeatedly, like she was going fast in a donut. Totally over him, over and over again.
Rule number 1, don't piss off a strong-willed woman.
No. Because they don't think rationally when they get that over the edge. There's no rational sanity left there. It's just do what I need to do and try not to get caught at it. That's the only rational part that's still there, is the trying not to get caught at it.
Yeah.
And some of them don't even care about that.
No, Lorena got away with it.
Yes. Yes.
There was another theory that was proposed for the Andreas family murder. I don't buy it. I think it's really far-fetched, but I want to throw it out there. Rumor, and this has never been substantiated, was that the family was politically far to the right. Nobody ever mentioned an association with the Nazi Party or anything, and that they were storing ammunition and guns for whichever far right party they supported in Munich. And historically, Munich was the hotbed. I mean, that's where the communists and the Nazis were battling each other in the street. And
that's where the paper was from.
Exactly. Yes. The Munich Abteilung, I think it was. And which might have shown why he was so afraid when he saw a Munich paper on his front porch. And the theory goes that somehow he fell afoul of the far right group, and they murdered the entire family in revenge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily buy that. Sorry, Morgana?
I remember reading something about that also.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was more fringy.
Yes.
You know, and everything. But, you know, I also saw something too, that they had found like tiles and stuff removed in the attic so that they could actually, if there was someone up there, look down on the family, kind of keep track of them. Mm-hmm. And also, and I mean, it just kind of struck me as curious, you know, I know that the story is, they, you know, tore down the homestead because it was just a bad reminder. But a year later, you know, when they hadn't completely, you know, they haven't solved anything, why would they potentially get rid of evidence?
Probably because, honestly, I don't think they can.
Well, what did y'all think about, there was one night, there was like one of the neighbors was walking home, and the wash house, there was a man with a mustache out there making bread, and the guy said something to him, and whoever it was shined a light into his eyes so he could not see them, so he could not identify them. Mm-hmm. And they were so put off by it, they just wandered off. I mean, but this was like before. But there was a man that kept being spotted around there, like in the woods watching the house. And then you got the footprints. So I still think somebody was living in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Andreas checked the house, and he checked upstairs and claimed there was nothing upstairs. So, I mean, it's possible. The Raven Studios, the one that I based, you know, my theory on, claims that man was Johann Dick. Mm-hmm. That he was there keeping an eye on everything, and that he flashed the flashlight in their eyes so they couldn't get a good look at it.
I hate to say I love this story, but this kind of story really just intrigues me. Mm-hmm. I did see that there had been, I think in 2007, some forensic students had done some research, and they won't say who they found as the guilty party because of their living relatives, which I thought was peculiar. Mm-hmm. But another thing that I found out was, what was it? Sorry, it just flew away.
Hadley,
the butterfly net didn't catch it.
Hadley, what theory do you fall towards more than others?
I don't know. It's very peculiar. All of them have their points, but I'm not sure which one I would go with, because the money. I think, this is my personal opinion, I think that she had a man on the side, I don't know who it was, that she was planning on running away with, and that she was the one that was getting the family into the barn. But they had a fight over whatever. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe it was something going on with her and the father. But I think that something happened and that person snapped. And when they snapped, I think they probably beat her and then strangled her, and then probably just hit her with that pickaxe. But I have a problem thinking that the wife did it, the Lorenz's wife, because I can't see a woman hitting a baby like that.
But what if the baby was the supposed love child?
I don't know, because it's still a baby. I just think that the maternal instinct might not go there. I mean, I know some women don't have it, but it's just one of those things. I just don't know.
One thing that always, when I was listening to the stories, reviewing it, I always thought to myself, God, the poor maid.
I know, right?
She's unpacking her stuff. I'm starting a new job tomorrow. Whack. But that raises a question. Whoever committed the murder had to have known that the maid was either going to arrive that day or had arrived.
Yeah.
So it had to have been somebody who had some level of intimacy, unless they went through the house, killing anyone else who could be a witness.
Well, would they had to have known that the maid was going to be there? Maybe it was a surprise because everybody else was let out to the barn, correct?
But the maid was not surprised, apparently. It looked as though the maid was in her room and the person who came up struck her from behind.
Okay.
So unless they were going through the house, because there was a whole topic about, well, couldn't you hear the murders in the barn? And people had said no, because others had said no, the barns were built so you didn't hear the animals at night.
Mm-hmm. I did read where they had tested that, in that they found that you would not have heard anyone scream.
Mm. And plus, if you hit them quickly the first time,
right?
Well, and go ahead.
I was going to say that everyone but the daughter had the little girl, the 7-year-old. Yeah. They had been, I think, probably killed with that first blow.
Yes.
But that little girl, I guess they had stacked her up with the bodies and thinking she was dead. That's just terrible.
Yep, she lived for 3 hours.
Yep.
Now, I'm sorry, Morgana, go ahead.
Well, and what I was thinking too is, as far as knowing that the maid was there, if it had been somebody just going through the house because they knew the baby was there, they wouldn't have been quiet. They'd have just gone through, and the maid may have heard that. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like they had to know that she was in there to go all the way upstairs and everything before, and she never turned around because she heard anybody downstairs or anything. Just a thought.
And did she know the person was there and didn't give it a second thought because the person?
She probably thought probably thought that if her back was to him, she might have just thought the family had come back in.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, one question I had that none of anything I ever looked at mentioned was the hair in little Cecilia's hands, her hair.
Yep.
Yes, there were bald patches. That's what I heard.
There were, okay. Because if it wasn't, whose hair was it? And if it was woman's hair, did it match the color of her or did it match the color of Anna?
They said that she likely was in shock and was pulling her hair out.
Yeah.
From what she was seeing. And it was her hair. That's what I read, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah, there's some inconsistencies, but everything that I read did say that it was her hair that she was pulling out, and there were bald patches.
Okay.
But so who do y'all think did it?
I don't like to think that it was Victoria, because I can see another woman killing a baby. I cannot see a woman killing her own baby. I could see the love child scenario as that was the reason, this was costing us financially, why I can't trust my husband. The baby's the cause of that. So I could see the other woman doing it, but I couldn't see Victoria planning to kill her children.
Well, I have to say this because
yeah.
I have to say this because this is one of the things that kept coming up into my brain when I was reading all about all this, was that someone could have done all of this strictly because of the child being, born of sin.
Yeah.
Which, that, but I have to say, this is the loosest place in Germany in 1922. I did not know that there was this much free love going on over in these little small German towns.
Well, sadly, people seem to be able to keep secrets better in little small towns.
Yeah. Well, apparently not about the incest, because everybody knew about that.
That's true. That's very true.
No,
here's my thing, and this is just speaking, and I understand, it was the 1920s and they were her parents and everything, but having gotten married, I'd have never gone back into the house with the man who molested me from the time I was 15, 16 years old. So I don't personally, I can't understand, and I get the victim mentality, I do. It's just hard for me to grasp it that somebody would go willingly back into that situation.
Well, see, I always thought from what I read that it was consensual.
Well, I read on one that when she was talking about marrying Lawrence, that was part of the issue, was that he had brutalized her when she was a child or when she was young, and then when she got older, then it was rumored that it was consensual. So like I said, probably something he started when she was young, and then I guess that was their way of life or whatever. But like I said, so that just I don't get that.
Well, by all accounts, he was a terrible person.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They said that, he beat her mother. The mother wasn't the mother older than him?
And he was also her second spouse. Actually, all of the farmland and everything belonged to her mother. Oh. He got it from the marriage.
Well, was she his child by birth, or was it just he raised her?
I think that she was actually his child from what I read. I did not read anywhere where she wasn't.
And Lorenz was the neighbor, and she was supposedly having an affair with Lorenz.
Yes.
Correct? Right.
Yes.
The 35-year-old daughter, Victoria, was having the affair with Lorenz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and the wife, Cecilia, was 10 years older than Andreas.
Okay.
But I don't remember if that was her daughter from the first marriage or if that was her daughter with Andreas.
I can hope that was her daughter from another marriage, and that maybe that makes the incest better, but I don't think it does.
It doesn't for me either, but
I know, I'm trying, but no, this is a hard one. I really wish I could find out what,
well, and what happened to the heads? Okay, I know that it was Germany and World War II and everything like that, but did they ever, at any point, was the place they were sent destroyed, or did they just poof, they're gone? Or
I don't know.
Was destroyed.
I got to look into that. That sounds like a reality TV thing.
It does. It really does.
Well, yeah, and let me tell y'all that, because I do have that imagination, but I was thinking, what if they were vampires? And that was why they beheaded their bodies, because they literally did bury the bodies headless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
And
now, let me ask you ladies a question. One of the reasons that the police did not go after Lorenz was that they thought it was bizarre the way he acted. And when he got to the house, and they thought that what he wasn't, because he was too forward about everything. Oh, that's my Maddox and them. They thought he was reacting in shock. And that the things he did, which seemed bizarre, the things today which would have ruined a forensic investigation, were not done to ruin a forensic investigation. It was a man in shock trying to pick up the pieces of the horror he was witnessing.
So are you saying that you think he was in shock and he was acting bizarrely because of that, or you're saying today it would not be?
I think he was in shock.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And because to me, when someone's in shock, everyone's going to act differently. You know, you can't put unless I just don't think you could. I don't know how I would act. I would hate to think I'd act suspicious, but I probably would because I'm weird.
No. You?
Yeah.
Well, if it was an act of passion, that's one thing. I mean, if he'd gone over to the house, got mad, and just killed Victoria, he plotted to kill everybody in the house. So was his reactions when he visited the house 3 or 4 days later be the reactions of a man who was calculated, or the reactions of a man who was seeing these people he was close to murdered for the first time?
Good question.
What did you think
the police
about?
Dismissed him, right? Like as a suspect, and why did they? Besides him having, like old people things happening to him and asthmatic and all that other stuff, what were the other reasons that they didn't go after him as much?
I don't think the police honestly thought it was him. Let me take a look at that. I remember that there were 3 suspects that they looked at. There were 2 brothers who were in the area. There was one guy, a Joseph Bartell, who had been through the area. He had escaped from a lunatic asylum in 1919. And a clairvoyant figured him as one of the suspects. But when the police went, I know, got nothing else to do. Yeah. Gee, we could either look at the forensics or we could talk to the clairvoyant. She fingered the Joseph Bartell, but the police could not find any evidence. Then there was the Carl Gabriel, the husband who died in the war. And then, let's see, I'm looking at my notes to see why they didn't arrest him. I don't know. I don't have the notes as to why they didn't arrest him.
Well, I found where years later that this is a report found in case files that a local teacher had surprised Lawrence at the remains of the demolished farm, and that he seemed to be frightened and confused, and he made the comment that the perpetrator had tried to bury the bodies in the dirt floor of the barn, but couldn't because the ground had been frozen. That seems kind of weird.
Well, another thing too that I found was that like 5 or 6 days before the murders, said a little girl and her mother were walking near the farm, and they saw Victoria sitting on the side of the road crying, and said they tried to comfort her and said she was scared, and that said she wouldn't say what was going on, but just kept repeatedly saying that she needed to run away. Well, they finally persuaded her to return home, and said that one of her friends later said that she had told them she had seen a stranger in an army coat watching the farmhouse, and that when she tried to approach him, he disappeared.
Now, I had read a report that said that when she was leaving the church one day, a stranger came up to her and was trying to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he refused to back away, and she had to run back to her house to escape him. So, what you said about the when they were tearing the house down, and he was talking about Lorenz was talking about the bodies were supposed to have been buried, but the ground was hot.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, somebody asked him how he felt about all this, and he was quoted as saying, "The Lord had his hand in the right place when it happened. These were bad people."
Wow.
So there goes
Yikes.
the pendulum of guilt again.
There you go. I mean, no matter how you felt about dad and daughter, you've got a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, So.
Well, the 7-year-old wasn't Lorenz's. The 2-year-old might have been.
And there is speculation that the 7-year-old was also Andreas's.
Yes.
Because she was born exactly 9 months after the wedding, the marriage of Victoria. Yeah. So it's up in the air as to who she belonged to.
Yeah.
Well, I think that a lot of Victoria's behavior with the bank and the money and leaving the guilt money at the confessional and all, I think that's someone who's planning on leaving. That's trying, and I mean, of course, I'm knee deep in domestic violence stuff right now, so it just sounds like someone who's making a plan to leave.
Well, and maybe she was planning on leaving, and the wrong person found out.
Yeah,
or maybe somebody who didn't want her to leave, who didn't want her taking his son away.
Yeah.
Found out.
That's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of Lorenz when you were saying that, because I was thinking, well, he wouldn't want her going or leaving, so he would try to stop her, and if hitting her didn't do the trick, he might strangle her.
Well, okay, let me take a moment for some drama. What if he was Victoria and him had an altercation in the barn, and he said, "You can't take my son," and she said, "It's not your son." That might lead to why the baby got it.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
But how about this too? Okay, there were hearing, men's voices and walking in the attic and stuff like that. If it had been Lorenz, he would have been missed at home. Somebody would have said, "Oh, well, where was he?" That kind of thing. So maybe it was somebody that they never even suspected. Because, I mean, it sounds like she was pretty open. So maybe, she finds somebody that she thinks could get her out of the situation. And maybe she's like, "Hey, I've got money. We're going to take off." And he's like, "No, I'm not going anywhere." And takes him out.
Well, I have to say that this occurred to me. I know it had to be somebody who had some kind of experience with farm animals to take care of the farm animals like they did. I mean,
it was a farming town though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, who would think, "Oh, I'm going to murder a whole family, but let me milk their cows"?
Come on, most of us love our animals more than other people.
That's true. I like animals more than most people.
I know, but I mean, still, I just would think that's just very strange.
Well, and if it had been people, with times being what they were, as far as being starving and everything like that, you would think that they would have taken some of the farm animals with them when they left. Because
or the money and all that.
Right.
I mean, it was just a passer through. It wouldn't be random. That's the point of this. It's got to be somebody that we've mentioned throughout this discussion.
My money is on one of the Schiltenbauers.
Okay.
It's either Lorenz or I tend, since it's less of a crime of passion than premeditated, I tend towards Anna the wife.
Or what if it was Anna's brother that she called in? Maybe because, you know, these aren't people he knew. So maybe he felt a little bit of remorse about it. And he's the one that covered them, because he could have been living in the house and wouldn't have been missed.
Right. If he snuck up in the attic and lived there and watched them, plotted them, because there were the two holes one of you ladies was talking about that you could see through. Look down on the barn and look down on the house.
Right.
So whoever was up there could see what they did, when they did, what the pattern was.
Right.
Yep. Well, the tapping, that's one of the things that just bothered me, was the tapping in the walls. And they said it wasn't like it was on the other. Sorry, I'm looking at the puppy. Of course, he's gotten something he doesn't need. But they said it wasn't like someone was tapping on the other side of the wall. It sounded like it was in the wall. And this is a whole new thing that I've been listening to for a while about these people who in modern times will get in a house and live in the walls.
There was a movie about that last year, I think.
Well, it's based on real cases. It's
Right,
very
yeah.
creepy. And then there's like, they call it something.
Yeah, it has an actual name.
But
You okay?
yeah, he's just irritating her. As he bounces after her, come back, I love you.
I want to bother you some more.
Let me bite your tail. But yeah, I can't think of what it's called. I'm gonna have to look it up now.
It's not squatting, but it kind of is.
It's
You
like
know,
urban something.
I know
Right.
what you mean. It's those old houses where there's spaces between the walls to prevent tenants and neighbors from hearing each other.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting case. Definitely, I would love to find out what that German police academy, those students found out.
Yeah.
I was thinking it has to be somebody that has a family that it matters for that to be revealed. Because
which makes you wonder if it's somebody still living in the town.
well, you heard where that one lady showed up and she said that her landlord knew something about the murders, and so the police went to talk to them, and the person had died, and I was like, that'd be my luck.
Yeah. And the murderer is.
And I remembered reading one too about this. It was a little girl that was like 12 at the time. She came forward later and said that she had overheard these two men. And the reason I thought about it was because one of the men's name was Andreas, just like the father's was. And that it was like her mom's brother or something. And her mother ended up setting herself on fire and burning herself to death. Let me see if I can find that, because it was kind of crazy. You know, why would you do that?
That sounds like foul play.
Yeah, it does.
That's not the way women usually take themselves.
340, what you call it, did. But let's see. Put my hands on that. Okay, there you go. In 1971, a woman called Teresa came forward and claimed that two brothers named Carl and Andreas committed the murders. She claimed this from overhearing a visit to her mother from their mother when she was 12 years old. Their mother, the guy's mother, later committed suicide by building a pyre in her kitchen, sitting in the middle of it and setting it on fire. They dismissed it due to lack of evidence and no connection between the men and the family.
What?
Mm-hmm.
German
You're going to
police
send me that.
procedures are not very good.
Well, guys, I think this has been a fascinating discussion, and I've had a really good
It has
time.
been.
Yes,
It has.
I have enjoyed it. We have way too much fascination with dead people, guys.
So, y'all want to tell everybody what you're currently working on?
Ladies first.
Well, I am participating in Wyrd Realities, Murder, Mystery, and Mayhem.
Yes, yes. And Wyrd ink sessions.
Yes.
Getting ready to go to Fringe. That's going to be awesome.
This will be on Fringe. This will be one of our first episodes.
Yep. Yep. That's fantastic.
Are you ladies all finished?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You can find me and my shenanigans at my Facebook page, Scott Baker's Demon Hunters. I will be doing the Wyrd Realities, the Watching Wyrd Halloween special this Thursday night.
Woo-hoo!
And also this Thursday, my newest zombie series, The Chronicles of Paul, hits Amazon. So swing on by, pick up the pre-order now, and get in on the fun.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us. And join us again in 2 weeks when Finley Jones and Jamie Hernandez join Jen and I to discuss, what is it called, Jen? Is it John Richardson, the internet killer?
Robinson.
Robinson.
That's it. The first internet killer.
That'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
The one that put the people in the buckets.
Yeah, I'm always talking about us being in the buckets by the end of it.
Well, if you'd like to find out more about our show, or you'd just like to contact us and tell us who you think did it, you can always do so at wyrdrealities.com, or you can find us on Wyrd Realities on Facebook. So be sure to find us. Again, that's Wyrd with a Y, and we will talk to you soon.
Before you go, be sure to leave us a comment and let our Wyrd team know how they're doing. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us to get notifications when we add new content. We are adding new content 3, 4, and sometimes 5 times a month. If you want to keep the conversation going or would like to learn more about our panel of hosts, be sure to check out our link tree. That's linktr.ee/Wyrd Realities. It links to our official Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and website.